listener production.
Hi, Natarsha Belling with you and welcome to the afternoon edition of The Briefing. Coming up in our deep dive, as our top authorities continue to work out what motivated the two alleged gunmen to carry out Australia's worst terror attack on Bondi Beach on Sunday, questions are now being asked over whether the mass shooting was a failure of our intelligence agencies. We speak with a former top terrorism expert who says our agencies and authorities dropped the ball in preventing the terror attack. Those details in just a moment. But first, let's check the latest afternoon headlines this Tuesday, the 16th of December, and the Bondi terror attack is again dominating our news. The New South Wales Police Commissioner has confirmed the father and son accused of carrying out the Bondi terror attack had recently travelled to the Philippines. The ABC is reporting the alleged terrorists underwent military-style training in the Philippines last month, just weeks before Sunday's terror attack. The southern Philippines became a hotspot for Islamist militant training camps in the early 90s. New South Wales Police Commissioner Mal Lanyon could not confirm the purpose of the alleged gunman's recent visit to the Philippines, saying the motive for the terror attack is still unclear.
I can confirm that they did travel to the Philippines. The reasons why they went to the Philippines and the purpose of that and where they went when they were there is under investigation at the moment.
The Commissioner also confirmed 2 homemade ISIS flags were found in the car used by the 2 alleged shooters. Meantime, New South Wales Premier Chris Minns has defended the bravery of New South Wales police officers as questions are raised over whether there was enough security at Sunday's celebrations.
If there's any suggestion that New South Wales Police didn't live up to their responsibilities to the people of this state, it should be rejected because it's not consistent with the facts. New South Wales police officers, some of whom had been in the job for a number of months, put their lives on the line to save people in this state.
Former Prime Minister John Howard has lashed out at Anthony Albanese's leadership in the wake of the terror attack. Police allege Naveed and Sajid Akram opened fire on Sunday evening, deliberately targeting Jewish crowds celebrating Hanukkah. At least 15 innocent people were killed and at least 40 others injured, some critically. Mr Howard, who was the architect of Australia's gun law overhaul after the Port Arthur massacre, criticised Mr Albanese and senior ministers, saying they had failed to properly crack down on the increase of anti-Semitism in Australia and had let the Jewish community down. In a special news conference earlier today, the former Prime Minister added he does not want the debate to focus solely on gun control.
I do not want this debate, post this horrible event, to be used, the focus on guns to be used as a pretext to avoid the broader debate about the spread of hatred of Jewish people and anti-Semitism.
And Bondi hero Ahmed al-Ahmed has broken his silence for the first time since he bravely risked his life to disarm one of the alleged gunmen. In a video posted by Turkey's public broadcaster, the Syrian-born man can be seen speaking from his hospital bed saying, quote, "I appreciate the efforts of everyone." Meantime, Mr Albanese has visited Mr al-Ahmed in St George Hospital, praising him as a true Australian hero.
At a moment where we have seen evil perpetrated, he shines out as an example of the strength of humanity. We are a brave country. Ahmed al-Ahmed represents the best of our country. We will not allow this country to be divided. That is what the terrorists seek.
Mr al-Ahmed is one of 24 victims still in hospital, 8 of which are still in a critical condition. Now it's time to get into our deep dive on whether our top intelligence agencies could have done more to try and prevent Sunday's terror attack. Former counter-terrorism detective Peter Moroney joins us to explain why he believes authorities have dropped the ball and the crucial red flags they missed. Peter, thanks so much for joining us. In your extraordinary career where you have been with the police and working in anti-terrorism organisations for decades. Did you think you would ever see what we saw at Bondi Beach on Sunday evening?
Look, certainly when I first started out in counter-terrorism many moons ago, no, I never thought, like most Australians, you'd ever see it. I think if I personally reflect, unfortunately, for me, it's always been a case of when, not if, and that's just based on the work we've done over the years. But to the extent and to the callousness, to just the atrocity that was committed, no, I didn't think I'd see it to that level at all.
Peter, looking at the alleged gunmen, did you think that they had undertaken some type of military training, that they knew what they were doing?
Yeah, look, I think particularly if you talk about the younger one, in terms of how he was able to manoeuvre and fire and reload, it certainly gives an indication that he's trained in his weapon. Now, whether he got that purely from backyard shooting or country-style hunting, for example, or gained that elsewhere, I would assume that's going to be part of the query or part of the brief that the police will submit and put together.
There are a lot of questions, understandably, being asked about the motive and also how we can prevent these atrocities and these terror attacks from ever happening again. There are unconfirmed reports that these two alleged gunmen had gone to the Philippines to undertake military-style training in an alleged terror camp. Now, the Police Commissioner has confirmed that they did travel to the Philippines, but says at this stage the actual reason they've gone there is part of the ongoing investigation. What are your thoughts about that?
Look, as you say, it's an unconfirmed source reporting at the moment. Travelling to the Philippines has been a long-held training ground, if I can put it that way. So, look, there is the possibility that if they have gone to the Philippines, it has been for that. Of course, it's only been put forward to a lesser degree by the police at the moment, but all of that I would expect to step out. There'd be a number of inquiries that the AFP are making in the Philippines to understand where they went, who they met with, and all of those sorts of things. But certainly in terms of where do I go to seek some training, the Philippines would be one of those locations.
Peter, as we said, these are unconfirmed reports at this stage about that they underwent this militant-style training. But if they did go over there and this did happen, surely there would have been some red flags. Can you explain? I understand there has to be some type of sponsorship program to actually undertake this.
Yeah, look, and Natarsha, you put it in a very good point, is that all of this is still yet to come out. So some of the material we're talking about is only on past understanding and past experiences that I have. We certainly know from the Australians that have gone overseas to train in terrorist organisations, whether that be in Pakistan, whether that be with Asbed al-Ansar down in southern Lebanon, those people can't just simply hop a plane, fly to those destinations and knock on a door and say, hey, I'm here, can I get some training? I can certainly tell you from my experience that there were back then Australians that sponsored those people into those organisations overseas. So if we reflect on that and we think then, if it turns out to be that these people have attended the Philippines and they have attended for what is being alleged by the sources, then it's similarly, in my experience, they can't just lob into the Philippines and say, hey, I'm here for some training. It just simply doesn't work that way. So then potentially opens that issue of how did they get there? Have they been sponsored? If that has been sponsored, where is the source of that sponsorship to put them in contact with the relevant people to get there? As you rightly say, it's all up in the air at the moment. It's still all open to being examined further, but that is based on some of the experiences that I'm aware of, that you can't just simply rock up and attend a terrorist training camp. It does not happen that way.
You've said this week, Peter, that ASIO has dropped the ball.
Mm-hmm.
Why?
Oh, look, I think if we put it in its most fundamentalist terms, and look, it's just not ASIO, it's going to be the collective law enforcement ASIO, because it's just not ASIO's role singly to counter terrorism in Australia. If we just simply look at, we have allegedly 2 individuals that are radicalised. They have gained possession. Well, we know one of the persons had possession of 6 firearms, so the sourcing of those firearms is all legal. But they then travel allegedly down into Bondi, set up the ISIS flag, and then step from that vehicle and cause the chaos and carnage that we've seen. Those types of things, in my experience, do not occur overnight, nor do they occur with a couple of days' thoughts or a week. You are extensively looking at an indoctrination process that could go for months, if not years. And then in terms of targeting where to go, I would anticipate seeing perhaps some evidence come about around a dry run, perhaps a visit to the scene from time to time. And I think we learnt that off Westfield's Bondi as well, in terms of the different Westfields that the person had attended prior to the fatal incident at Bondi. So I'd probably expect to see that. Now, with that activity then comes indicators, red flags, warning signs that have been missed. So if we put it in the simplest terms then, as part of their key charter with ASIO and law enforcement, it is not to miss. It is not to let those things happen. And unfortunately it has. So a lot of questioning is going to come back on those organisations. They're aware of that. They're already flagged that themselves. They will already be self-exploring to understand what happened. Why wasn't it put together? Why did they miss it? And if I can put a human side to that, I know we've got a lot of tragedy before us. There will be a number of law enforcement and ASIO operatives out there carrying that burden that they know they missed. And that is a heavy burden to carry. And you know, I feel for them from having been there in similar situations. However, unfortunately, we have 16 dead. So some questions have to be asked.
Peter, I'm glad you've made that point about, we even saw the New South Wales Premier come out and defend the New South Wales police officers. We know 2 were critically injured that were some of the first reportedly on the scene on the weekend. We know the ASIO officers do extraordinary work. There are reports again in the media that there have been a number of red flags raised about a lack of funding, a lack of support, a lack of resources, especially with the recent increase in anti-Semitism. Is this got to more to do about blaming the bureaucrats that aren't listening to the frontline workers saying, this is what's going to happen, we need the adequate funding and support?
It's a very good question. Funding alone was very advantageous to assist us with resources, and those resources will be human resources, they'll be electronic resources and a large number of other aspects. But simply pushing money into the issue won't solve it. It's got to be a multi-pronged approach. And what I'll mean by that is that clearly, the more resources that we have, the more chance we are going to be across intelligence. But it's also then got to be looked at in terms of government policy, government understanding about the issues that the frontline police or intelligence agencies are going to deal with. All of that has to come together in order for us to be able to achieve it. And it's not just on ASIO, it's not just on law enforcement. It's on community as well. Now, whether that be the Islamic community, whether that be the Jewish community, the Australian community, and I'll go broader and go, it has to be on the Australian community. Let's not pick any individuals out. We all have a part to play in countering violent extremism in this country. Whilst it is still early days and there is a number of moving parts to this investigation, I would clearly expect that what one aspect of that will look like is how did these two become the way they were, who knew that, who assisted in that. And so all of those sorts of things will come out. So whilst the funding's certainly a key part of it, it's not the sole part.
We really appreciate you joining us, Peter. Thank you so much.
My pleasure. Thank you for having me.
That was former counter-terrorism detective Peter Moroney. And that's it for this episode of the afternoon edition of The Briefing. We'd love you to subscribe or follow us on Instagram at The Briefing Podcast. I'm Natarsha Belling. Thanks for your company.